The scorching heat of a New York City summer didn't deter the throngs of people hustling through the streets of Harlem. The air was thick with the aroma of street food mingled with the distant notes of jazz pouring from open windows. It was in this vibrant tapestry that Dana Carter moved with purpose, her heels clicking confidently against the pavement as she navigated Lenox Avenue. Dana, a 32-year-old civil rights attorney, was the embodiment of grace under pressure. Her deep brown eyes reflected both intelligence and an unwavering determination. Dressed in a tailored gray suit and carrying a weathered leather briefcase, she exuded professionalism. She was on her way to meet her longtime friend, Maya, for brunch at Sylvia's, the famed soul food restaurant that had been a Harlem staple for decades. As she walked, Dana couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. Harlem was more than just a neighborhood to her. It was a living, breathing testament to black culture and resilience. The streets were alive with history, from the Harlem Renaissance to the Civil Rights Movement, and she was proud to be part of its ongoing story. But as she approached the corner of 125th Street, she noticed two NYPD officers standing near a patrol car. Their eyes locked onto her, and she felt a familiar knot tighten in her stomach. Years of legal work had taught her to recognize the subtle cues of undue suspicion. She kept her head high, reminding herself that she had done nothing wrong. "Ma'am, could you stop for a moment?" one of the officers called out as she drew near. Dana paused, turning to face them. "Is there a problem, officers?" she asked, her voice measured. The officer who had spoken stepped forward. His name tag read Jacobs. He was tall and imposing, with a stern expression that seemed etched into his features. "We've had reports of suspicious activity in the area. Mind showing us some ID?" Dana's heart sank, but she maintained her composure. "May I ask what kind of suspicious activity?" she inquired. Officer Jacobs exchanged a glance with his partner, a shorter man with a receding hairline named Officer Barker. "Just routine questioning," Barker chimed in, his tone dismissive. "Now your ID, please." Dana took a steadying breath. "With all due respect, unless I'm being accused of something, I believe I'm free to go." Jacobs's jaw tightened. "Are you refusing to cooperate?" "I'm not refusing," Dana clarified. "I'm simply asserting my rights." A small crowd had begun to gather at a distance, sensing the tension. Among them was an elderly woman who shook her head knowingly and a young man who began recording on his phone. "Look," Barker said impatiently, "we can make this easy, or we can make it hard. Your choice." Dana's eyes met his. "Officers, I'm an attorney. I know my rights. Unless you have a reasonable suspicion that I've committed a crime, you have no grounds to detain me." Jacobs took a step closer, his voice lowering. "Attitude like that isn't going to help you." "Attitude?" Dana echoed, incredulous. "I'm simply exercising my constitutional rights." The crowd murmured, the tension thickening in the hot summer air. A child clutched his mother's hand, eyes wide as he watched the scene unfold. Barker sneered. "You think because you're a lawyer, you're above the law?" "Not at all," Dana replied evenly. "I think that the law applies to everyone equally, including law enforcement." Jacobs's face reddened. "That's it. Turn around and put your hands behind your back." He reached for his cuffs, but before he could proceed, a voice called out from the crowd, "Leave her alone." All eyes turned to see an older man stepping forward. His name was Samuel Thompson, a respected community leader and owner of a local bookstore that had been a fixture in Harlem for over 40 years. "She's done nothing wrong," Samuel asserted, his voice steady. Jacobs glared at him. "Sir, stay out of this." "I'm afraid I can't do that," Samuel replied. "I've seen too many of our people harassed for no reason." More voices joined in. "Yeah, this isn't right. She hasn't done anything." The officers seemed momentarily taken aback by the growing support for Dana. Jacobs scowled. "All of you need to back off." Dana seized the moment. "Officers, this is unnecessary. If you truly believe I've committed an offense, state it now. Otherwise, I'm leaving." Barker looked around, noticing that several bystanders were filming. He leaned toward Jacobs, whispering something. Jacobs's expression hardened, but he stepped back. "Fine," he snapped. "Just know we'll be watching." Dana didn't respond. She turned and walked away, her heart pounding in her chest. As she moved through the crowd, people nodded to her, offering words of support. "Stay strong, sister. We're with you." She finally reached Sylvia's, finding Maya waiting outside. Maya's eyes widened with concern. I saw the commotion. Are you okay? Dana managed a tight smile. Just another day. They went inside, the familiar warmth of the restaurant providing a stark contrast to the encounter outside. As they sat down, Dana recounted the incident. This has to stop, Maya said, her eyes flashing with anger. You can't keep facing this alone. I'm not alone, Dana replied softly. People stood up today. They spoke out. Maya reached across the table, taking her hand. Maybe it's time to take it further. Use your voice on a bigger platform. Dana considered her friend's words. She had always been passionate about civil rights, but perhaps there was more she could do. That evening, Dana sat in her apartment, the city lights twinkling outside her window. She opened her laptop and began to write, pouring her thoughts into an article about systemic racism and the urgent need for police reform. She sent the piece to a contact at the New York Times. To her surprise, they published it the next day on their website, and it quickly gained traction. Comments flooded in, some supportive, others critical, but the conversation had begun. Over the next few weeks, Dana found herself at the center of a growing movement. She was invited to speak at community meetings, appeared on local news segments, and participated in panel discussions. Each time, she shared her experiences, emphasizing the importance of standing up against injustice. One afternoon, she received a call from the office of Judge Terrence Wallace, a prominent figure in the fight for civil rights. His secretary informed her that the judge wished to meet with her. On the day of the meeting, Dana entered the grand courthouse, her footsteps echoing in the marble halls. Judge Wallace's office was spacious yet modest, filled with books and framed photographs from pivotal moments in civil rights history. Ms. Carter, the judge greeted her warmly. I've been following your work. It's an honor to meet you, Your Honor, Dana replied. Please call me Terrence, he said, gesturing for her to sit. I wanted to commend you for your courage and to discuss how we can collaborate. Dana felt a surge of hope. I'm eager to contribute in any way I can. They spoke at length about strategies for legal reform, community engagement, and the importance of education in combating prejudice. As she left the courthouse, Dana felt a renewed sense of purpose. She realized that her encounter with the officers had been a catalyst, propelling her into a role she hadn't anticipated but was ready to embrace. Meanwhile, the two officers found themselves under investigation after multiple complaints surfaced. The NYPD announced that they would be reviewing their training programs, and community leaders pushed for greater accountability. One evening, as Dana prepared for a televised interview, she received a message from Samuel Thompson, the man who had spoken up for her that day. You're making a difference, it read. Proud of you. She smiled, responding with gratitude. The interview was a pivotal moment. The host asked probing questions about her experiences and the broader implications for society. What do you hope to achieve? The host asked. I hope to inspire others to stand up, Dana replied. Change doesn't happen when we stay silent. It happens when we come together, raise our voices, and demand better. Her words resonated with viewers across the nation. Social media lit up with discussions, and the hashtag #StandWithDana began trending. But not everyone was supportive. She received backlash from those who denied the existence of systemic racism, and there were threats intended to intimidate her. Yet, Dana refused to be silenced. One night, after a long day of meetings, she found a letter slipped under her door. It was from Officer Barker. She hesitated before opening it, her hands trembling slightly. The letter was brief. Ms. Carter, I've watched as you've spoken out against what happened. I wanted to apologize for my actions. I realize now that I've been part of the problem. I'm seeking counseling and hope to make amends. Sincerely, Officer Randy Barker. Dana sat down, processing the unexpected apology. It wasn't absolution, but it was a start. She decided to write back, encouraging him to use his position to effect positive change within the force. The months that followed saw significant developments. The NYPD implemented new training protocols focused on de-escalation and cultural sensitivity. Community policing efforts were strengthened, and open forums were established for dialogue between law enforcement and residents. Dana continued her advocacy, now working closely with Judge Wallace and other leaders to push for legislative reforms. She traveled to Washington, D.C., speaking before committees and rallying support for national policies aimed at addressing police misconduct. Her journey was challenging, filled with obstacles and opposition, but she remained steadfast. One day, she returned to Harlem to attend a community event at Samuel Thompson's bookstore. The place was packed, the air buzzing with conversation and anticipation. Samuel introduced her to the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, our very own Dana Carter, a beacon of hope and a champion for justice." She took the stage, looking out at the faces of friends, neighbors, and strangers who had become allies. "Thank you," she began. "But this isn't about me. It's about us, all of us, coming together to create the change we wish to see. It's about ensuring that no one has to fear walking down their own street or standing up for their rights." The applause was thunderous. After the event, a young girl approached her. "Ms. Carter, I want to be a lawyer like you someday." Dana knelt down to her level, smiling warmly. "You can be anything you want to be. And I'll be here to help you along the way." As she walked home that evening, the sun setting over the city skyline, Dana reflected on how far she had come. From that fateful encounter on Lenox Avenue to becoming a voice for change, her path had been unexpected but deeply fulfilling. She knew there was still much work to be done. Injustice didn't disappear overnight, and the road ahead would be long. But with each step, she felt the weight of countless others walking beside her. Dana Carter had transformed from a victim of discrimination into a hero of her community, proving that one person's courage could ignite a movement. Her story was a testament to the power of standing up, speaking out, and never backing down in the face of adversity. And so, with unwavering determination, she continued her fight for justice, equality, and the better world she knew was possible.